everyone, it's Brett Hornby here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and welcome back to video number 2 of 5 with my on the road to the Grey Cup videos. The 110th Grey Cup this year for the 2023 CFL season will conclude in Hamilton, Ontario. I've already previewed the East semi-final game, so you can take a look at that video between the Montreal Alouettes and the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Well, now let's shift focus to the west side of the bracket. As I mentioned in the previous video, the bracket is the same in terms of the same matchups, same locations, except the game is in Hamilton for the Grey Cup, and the divisional games, the semi-final and the final games, will be played on Saturday. And as I did in the previous video, I'm trying to streamline it a little more this year. I have still kind of the same format, but streamline a little more before I get into my notes and break down the West semi-final game between the BC Lions and the Calgary Stampeders. If you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, just make sure you hit like, subscribe, and have my other social media links down in the description below. So let's bring on my notes, and now let's take a look at the West semi-final. And I said the other thing that also is different from last year this year is I am feeling a lot better than I did last year this time. So I think I'm going to be able to actually do all 5 videos as I wasn't able to last year. So now it's the West semi-final, as the BC Lions will be hosting the Calgary Stampeders for the 2nd straight season. Kickoff will be on Saturday, November the 4th, 2023. It will be a 4:30 kickoff Mountain, or 6:30 Eastern, or 3:30 in Vancouver at BC Place. So how did we get here? And I'm going to say this could be a little more of a mismatch when looking at the records, as this is the 2-3 matchup, and the winner will eventually take on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers a week later in the West final. Well, the BC Lions, they were 12-6, and they were 2nd in the West Division. Well, my Calgary Stampeders, we were actually 6-12 and finished 3rd in the East Division, or West Division, I meant to say. So Calgary made the playoffs with a 6-12 record because we won the season series against the Saskatchewan Roughriders, because they also had a 6-12 record. So it's the first time since 1999 that a 6-12 team, which was the Edmonton, then named Eskimos, they had a 6-12 record and made the playoffs. However, they lost in the West semi-final to the Calgary Stampeders that year. But I also do recall in 1981, the 5-11 Ottawa, 5-13 I should say, Ottawa Roughriders went to the Grey Cup and actually pushed the Edmonton Eskimos a hard time with Warren Moon, but eventually Edmonton came up top. So that's just a little tidbit right there. So the odds look odd, but when you look at the season series and the matchup, maybe my Stampeders could pull off an upset. We'll see. But break down their records even more. BC Lions, they were 6-3 at home, and they were 8-4 against the West in their own division. While the Calgary Stampeders, they were 3-6 on the road, so both Calgary and BC had similar records at home or on the road. The Calgary Stampeders, however, were only 4-7 against the West Division, so that could also play a factor in this game as well. Season series, well, both teams played each other 3 times this season. Week 1, the first week of the regular season, was in Calgary. The BC Lions won that game 25-15. However, the next 2 games, it was lopsided for either side. So week 10, the game was in BC. Well, the BC Lions, they dominated against the Calgary Stampeders, winning that one 37-9. However, in week 20, when the Calgary Stampeders still had to be able to control their playoff fate, well, they showed up big time and defeated the BC Lions in BC 41-16 a couple weeks ago. Ultimately, the BC Lions did still win the season series 2-1, but it was that week 20 performance that might show that the Calgary Stampeders despite the record, despite how the season went, may be able to pull off an upset. Wishful thinking as a Calgary Stampeders fan, but we'll break it down that I think it's anyone's game. Just get in and we'll see what happens. In the next part of the video, I'd look at the playoff history, the last 3 times that these two teams played each other in the playoffs. Well, we don't need to go too far back, as last year in the 2022 West semifinal, the BC Lions Calgary Stampeders played, and BC won that one 30-16 in Vancouver. And then in 2016 in the West Final, where that winner that was going to the Grey Cup in Toronto at that time, well, the Calgary Stampeders dominated the BC Lions, and that game was in Calgary, as Calgary won that game 42-15. And then 2015 in the West semifinal, this game also was in Calgary, and it was a fairly lopsided matchup that year, as I believe actually Calgary was 14-4, and BC was, I think they were 7-11 that year. Well, Calgary dominated that game and won 35-9. So no strangers, each team playing each other with lopsided records in the regular season. And then the last playoff win for each team, well, the BC Lions' last playoff win was the West semifinal last year, as when they beat the Calgary Stampeders 30-16 at home. Well, the Calgary Stampeders, their last playoff win didn't happen, gotta go all the way back to 2018, as the last game the Stampeders won in the playoffs actually was the 106th Grey Cup in Edmonton, when they defeated the Ottawa Red Blacks 27-16. Calgary was designated as the home team, so Calgary's got a little bit of a playoff drought going on since winning the Grey Cup in 2018. So, who has the edge in each position? And you might say it will definitely dominate one team over the other, but there's some X factors that I'll also take a look at. So, who has the edge? Well, quarterback, by far, this will go to the BC Lions. Vernon Adams Jr. led the league in passing this season. Jake Maier and Vernon Adams Jr. both threw for over 4,200 yards this season, but Vernon Adams Jr., or they call him BA, Vernon Adams, he's actually had a good record against the Calgary Stampeders as a starter, both as an outlet and a line. Running back, that was definitely a big factor in the Calgary Stampeders winning the Week 20, and they kind of abandoned it last year in the playoffs, and it beat them big time. Well, the running game, that edge could go to the Calgary Stampeders in this one, especially with Kadeem Carey and Peyton Logan. The receiver, this still will go to the BC Lions, you know, Justin McInnes, John Gatoy, just to name a few. And then the offensive line, well, BC still has a more sturdy, more stable offensive line. So on the offensive side of the ball, other than running, everything else favors the BC Lions. So now if you flip over to the defensive side of the ball, well, defensive line, we'll give that edge to the BC Lions, especially with Matthew Betts, the sack master. He set a record for most sacks as a Canadian. However, linebackers, you might give that edge to the Calgary Stampeders, especially with Cameron Judge and Micah Awe. Micah Awe led the league in tackles and actually set a Stampeders record, beating Alex Singleton's tackle record. And then defensive backs, those are looking for the ball hogs. I would have to still give that to the BC Lions. I just want to look at the edge. I read the CFL.ca article as well and see if I agree or disagree. And I agree with most of the points except for one. And then when the return game, I'm going to have to still give that one to the BC Lions, as they got Terry Williams. Calgary has had kind of a platoon with all the injuries. I'm going to assume that Peyton Logan will be back there, and not too sure who else they're going to play at this stage right now. But Terry Williams is definitely more of a threat for the BC Lions and the Calgary Stampeders running game. But the kicking game, I'm going to give this a push. I think both teams, Sean White for BC, Rennie Paredes for Calgary, and then Stephen Flimtoff for the punter for BC, and Cody Grace. I think the kicking game, I give it a push. The Stampeders was given the edge in CFL.ca, but I think both teams have steady veteran kickers and punters. So, looking at who has the edge, you could say right now, it's BC Lions understandably so, given the records. So, this is where I'll now go off this team will win if. Well, BC will win if Vernon Adams Jr. keeps his mastery over the Calgary Stampeders. As he's actually, even when Calgary had Bo, when he played in Montreal, Vernon Adams Jr. I think has almost a 700 winning percentage as a starter against the Calgary Stampeders in his career. So I'm going to say if he continues his mastery, finding his big game receivers, BC will win if they suppress Calgary's run attack. If they shut down the run attack, which obviously they didn't a couple weeks ago when Calgary won that game. But if they suppress the run attack, I'm going to say BC is going to wipe the Calgary Stampeders out. And then BC will win if Kerry Williams burns and returns. I'm going to say if the Calgary Stampeders allow some big special teams plays, it could be a long game for me and the Calgary Stampeders. Calgary will win if they get a quick lead and don't play catch-up. I don't think the Calgary Stampeders have enough talent, and they've shown it all year, that the Calgary Stampeders get behind and need to play catch-up, and they're not able to do it. So they need a quick lead or keep the game close to have a chance to pull off an upset. And I'm going to say Calgary will win if the running game repeats his performance in Week 20. Gideon Carey, Peyton Logan, they combined over 200 yards rushing, and I hope that Calgary does not abandon that plan this year like they did last year in the playoff game. And then Calgary will win, as I say, if Judge swings the gavel and Awe amazes. If Cameron Judge, and Mike Awe puts fear in the BC Lions, maybe both get an interception and maybe a pick six. I'm going to say those were two of the best players on defense for the Calgary Stampeders this season. So that is where I think will be the factors for both teams to win. The weather forecast, well, if you're going to the game, you're going to be wet, as they're forecasting rain and a high of 15 degrees in Vancouver. So be a warm, humid rain, and showers a low of 9. However, this is BC Place, so it's going to be in a dome, and I'm sure the roof's going to be closed if it's raining. So weather will not be a factor in this one. The more weather would be more of a factor, it would be crowd noise, as the BC franchise has definitely been revived with the new ownership, and they've been selling tickets in the second deck. So I'm anticipating it'll be a hostile environment for the Calgary Stampeders. So now we get to the lamp part of the video. Prediction and my pick'em for confidence. So, if the BC Lions are going to win, they'll make it orange, or sometimes these orange doesn't show up as good. So this is the orange I'll get if I pick the BC Lions. Or, here's red for my Calgary Stampeders. Who do I think was going to win? Is it BC? Or is it Calgary? BC or Calgary? Let's spin the color wheel. And what decision do I make? BC or Calgary? BC or Calgary? Well, you might be saying I'm biased, but I'm going to say we're going to pull off the upset. I think the Calgary Stampeders will pull off the upset. I think Calgary will win this one 31-27. I think the Calgary Stampeders, they lost a couple games in overtime. Excuse me. They lost a couple close ones. But I think Jake Mayer and many members of the team last year will learn from last year's game and be more prepared for it. I think Calgary is going to be more determined. However, I'm only going to give it a 40% confidence that I think the Calgary Stampeders will pull off the upset. But the run game, if Reggie Bagleton gets a big game, or maybe Luther Hakanavu, or if this game comes down to a kick, and whoever has the kicker that's in the best position, if we have the ball last and need a field goal to win it, I think we'll pull off the upset. So that's my prediction. You might say I'm biased, but I think an upset's going to happen. Bring on the Pepto Bismol. And whoever winds up winning this game will be taking on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers at IG Field on Saturday, November 11th. Same time. It will be 4:30 kickoff Mountain Time or 6:30 Eastern Time or wherever you happen to be. So, who do you have winning the West semifinal between the BC Lions and the Calgary Stampeders for the on the road to the Grey Cup? Who is the Winnipeg Blue Bombers going to play in next week? So, as my plan for next week is I'll preview the East and West finals for one more step closer to the Grey Cup. The West road's going to be a lot longer as it starts off in Vancouver and it will be going east to Winnipeg and eventually in Hamilton. So be a much longer road than out in east, but that's just the way all the cities are spread out in this great country that we call Canada. So anyway, as I say, you want to follow along this Calgary sports fan's journey, just make sure you hit like, subscribe. I mostly do talk Calgary sports on my YouTube channel, but I've done this on the road to the Grey Cup for the last few years. And I also have my other social media links down in the description below, so if it all sounds like it'd be interesting to watch, just make sure you like, subscribe, and stay tuned for next week, barring anything unforeseen, where I'm going to preview both the East and West final games. We'll see who wins these games, enjoy the CFL Playoffs, and as I say, I'll see you in the next video.